Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to our lecturer, Dr. Muhammad Rizmizi bin Abdul Rahman. Today, our group would like to present our research topic about COVID-19 pandemic, online learning and teaching in Malaysia. Before we start, I would like to introduce our group members. First, Nur Atika binti Hairul, matric nama 1172118. Second, Ayu Natasha binti Abdullah, 1172129. Third, Nur Natasha Tushima binti Yusri, matric number 1172137. Fourth, Mariam Jamila binti Muhammad Yazid, 1172139. And then lastly, Nur Nadia Adila binti Abdul Rashid, 1172141. Okay, next slide. Okay, I want to share some speech from Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, about COVID-19 pandemic education system. Can you play the video?
Penularan wabak COVID-19 telah banyak mengubah amalan pendidikan di negara kita. Sepanjang tempoh Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan dilaksanakan, pengajaran dan pembelajaran tidak lagi dijalankan secara bersemuka. Sebaliknya, guru menggunakan pelbagai kaedah lain untuk berhubung dengan pelajar. Ramai yang menggunakan aplikasi dalam talian seperti Google Classroom, Cikgu Tube dan Zoom untuk melaksanakan pembelajaran di rumah atau home-based learning. Tidak kurang juga cikgu yang menggunakan WhatsApp dan Telegram. Dan saya diberitahu ada juga cikgu yang menyampaikan latihan sukan secara online. Namun saya sedar bahawa masih ada kekangan dalam melaksanakan pembelajaran dalam talian di rumah kerana tidak semua murid mempunyai akses internet yang baik. Ramai juga yang tidak memiliki peranti yang sesuai. Dan untuk pelajar dalam kumpulan ini, saya tahu cikgu telah menggunakan pelbagai kaedah lain. Sebagai contoh, ada yang mencetak soalan untuk kerja rumah murid dan bekerjasama dengan PIBG bagi menghantar soalan ke rumah murid. Saya amat terharu dan sangat menghargai kesungguhan para guru dan ibu bapa kita. Setelah 2 bulan sekolah ditutup, saya percaya ramai yang bertanya bila sekolah akan dibuka. Seperti mana yang telah diumumkan oleh Yang Berhormat Menteri Kanan Pendidikan sebelum ini, tarikh pembukaan semula sekolah akan dimaklumkan sekurang-kurangnya 2 minggu sebelum sekolah dibuka. Ini bergantung kepada nasihat yang diberikan oleh Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia.
Okay, so this is a speech from Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, about COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, next I will go to the introduction.
According to World Health Organization, COVID-19 is the disease caused by the new coronavirus that emerged in China in December 2019. The symptoms of COVID-19 including cough, fever and shortness of breath. The virus can be spread from person to person. Okay, next. Because of that, Malaysia has taken prevention by using movement control or the MCO to prevent the virus from spreading more. It gives harsh impacts, especially for education system in Malaysia. Okay, now we go to the next slide. The Ministry of Higher Education announced that all schools and universities in Malaysia are to conduct teaching and learning activities via online learning until the end of December 2020. There will be no face-to-face teaching session on campus except for certain categories of students who need to return to campus in stage to implement learning and teaching in full compliance with the standard operating procedure SOP set and prioritize safety measure and social distancing. This online and distance learning (ODL) method requires commitment and cooperation from all parties, especially in terms of knowledge and skills related to information technology, provision of digital device and access to quality internet access, as well as the provision of appropriate assessment methods to measure student achievement. Therefore, all parties must prepare to face the new norm of the online teaching and learning method as a whole during this MCO period for the continuation of the teaching and learning process of the students. Next. Okay, now we go to the research question and research objective. Okay, next slide. Research question. First, what is the coronavirus disease COVID-19? Second, what is the implication of students on online learning during COVID-19? Third, how to overcome student problems in dealing with online learning from Islamic perspective. Next. Okay, now we go to the research objective. Previous slide. Go to previous slide. Okay, research objective. First, to know the coronavirus disease COVID-19. Second, to identify the implication of students on online learning during COVID-19. Third, to analyze how to overcome student problems in dealing with online learning from Islamic perspective. Next, we go to next slide. Now we go to the research methodology. This research methodology of this study is based on the academic research in the internet. The literature survey consists of published articles, books, and internet resources regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Online learning and teaching in Malaysia. This study used descriptive method in clarifying data and drawing the conclusion towards the COVID-19 pandemic, online learning and teaching in Malaysia. The COVID-19 pandemic, online learning and teaching in Malaysia has been analysed using analytical method. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ayu Natasha binti Abdullah. My matric number 1172129. Next, I will continue with our first research objective, which is to know about the coronavirus disease. About the disease background, COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus pandemic, which is the current coronavirus disease pandemic 2019, which is known as COVID-19. COVID-19 also caused by extreme acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, known as SARS-CoV-2, which is first detected in Wuhan, China in December 2019. More than 65.4 million cases have been confirmed as at 4 December 2020, with more than 1.7 million deaths due to COVID-19. Next, I will explain about the disease transmission, symptoms, and prevention. COVID-19 transmission spread by a variety of ways, including mostly saliva and other body fluids and excretions. These fluids can form tiny droplets and aerosol that can disperse as an infected person breathes, coughs, sneezes, sings, or talks. The virus can also spread by direct contact, but infection occurs mostly when people are near enough to each other, known as close contact. It may spread as early as 2 days before pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic individuals grows. Next, symptom of COVID-19. Common symptoms include fever, cough, exhaustion, trouble breathing, loss of smell and taste, and complication may include pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome. Next, the prevention of this disease are by social distancing, wearing a face mask in public, ventilation and air cleaning, washing hands with soap and water often and for at least 20 seconds, practicing good respiratory hygiene and avoiding touching the eyes, nose or mouth with unwashed hands, covering of one's mouth while sneezing or coughing, disinfecting of surface, monitoring and safe isolation of exposed or symptomatic individuals. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, next. My name is Nur Nadia Adila binti Abdul Rashid. My matric number is 1172141. Okay, next, the implication of student on online learning during COVID-19. In order to restrict the spread of novel coronavirus disease, universities have been closed worldwide, terlebih interpreting the learning process for 1.58 billion or 91.5% of overall enrolled learners. The Movement Control Order or MCO was imposed in Malaysia beginning on 18 March 2020 to stop the transmission of COVID-19. While MCO was eased by the government by enabling most companies to reopen from 4 May 2020, the higher education market remained closed, which is still facing difficulties before MCO. The COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the world and caused nations, including the education industry, to go into lockdown. Then students not allowed to go to university campus have been living in hostel or apartment. This condition have left no alternative for university administration but to provide an online platform for learning. In particular, Malaysian university have faced several difficulties in bringing their online learning system and ready for to restart the process of education. However, with no preparation or readiness, students have found themselves trapped in this condition, which mean pure online learning. Okay, next, the implication of student on. Sorry, please go to the previous slide. Okay, we continue with the implication. Online learning during COVID-19 is about weakness. E-learning has some drawbacks in the sense that contact between the learner and the teacher can be impaired. It's mean direct communication and lack of human interaction. While studying online, some do not feel relaxed, contributing to increase dissatisfaction and uncertainty. Inadequate consistency between the technology design and the psychology aspect demanded by the learning process and infusion. Customization of learning processes will delay and create an imbalance in the teaching process. Okay, move to the next slide. Okay, the next implication is hard to ensure that all students have access to unlimited and secure internet service. Internet speed and coverage vary depending on the budget and position of students. Compared to their peers who live in urban areas, certain students who reside in rural areas are likely to face difficulties in obtaining adequate and good internet connectivity. In addition to being overwhelmed by family commitments, they face many difficulties such as lack of infrastructure, such as computer and internet access, and also a quiet room to learn. Then, knowing the opinion of students is crucial as their feedback may show a variety of emotional and preparation problems in facing in this situation. Student communication may potentially help detect their online difficulties. Okay, lastly, less time spending in learning is one of the implication e-learning during COVID-19. Closing school building and moving to a distant learning area may result in less teaching time being spent by students. The weekly instructional time of students during the COVID-19 lockdown period is shortened by between 4 and 8 hours. Relative to when schools are open, several studies consistently indicate that less time spent on learning will lead to lack of learning. Okay, the next slide shows breaking news, reality online learning during COVID-19 in rural areas. So, based on this breaking news, we can see how students in rural area learn online learning during COVID-19.
Murid seluruh negara kini berdepan dengan cabaran bagaimana untuk menyesuaikan diri, mengadaptasi kepada normal baru iaitu kepada pembelajaran dalam talian. Apabila hampir 40% murid tidak mempunyai peranti elektronik, ini menimbulkan persoalan mengenai persediaan murid dan guru dalam menghadapi perubahan digital ini, terutamanya bagi mereka di luar bandar. Di Sekolah Kebangsaan Lingkabau, Beluran, Sabah contohnya, perubahan ini amat mencabar apabila akses kepada peranti elektronik, telefon malah capaian internet pun menjadi cabaran buat penduduk Lingkabau. Kita ingin dengarkan keluhan seorang wakil ibu bapa pelajar di SK Lingkabau, bagaimana realiti mereka dalam mengadaptasi kepada normal baru ini.
Saya sebagai wakil ibu bapa pelajar di SK Lingkabau, agak terkilanlah sepanjang tempoh PKP ini, karena pembelajaran anak-anak kami sangat terjejas. Namun demikian, kami mengucapkan juga ribuan terima kasih kepada guru-guru atas usaha-usaha yang diwujudkan oleh para guru untuk menyediakan kerja harian untuk para murid melalui aplikasi WhatsApp, di mana mereka telah menyediakan beberapa grup untuk semua pelajar untuk mendapat pelajaran setiap hari lah. Namun apa yang menyedihkan dan amat menjejaskan pembelajaran pelajar-pelajar SK Lingkabau ialah capaian internet di kawasan Kampung Lingkabau dan kampung sekitarnya agak lembab. Jadi pembelajaran yang disalurkan melalui WhatsApp tidak dapat diakses sepenuhnya oleh semua ibu bapa, dan ini menyebabkan pembelajaran anak-anak kami memang terjejas teruk. Apa yang lebih menyedihkan ialah separuh daripada pelajar-pelajar SK Lingkabau berada atau tinggal di kawasan yang tidak mempunyai rangkaian telepon, ataupun ada antara ibu bapa yang langsung tidak memiliki telepon, dan ada juga yang memiliki telepon tetapi bukan telepon pintar. Jadi usaha untuk mengakses, sebagai contoh, guru-guru menyediakan lembaran-lembaran kerja kepada pelajar setiap minggu sepanjang PKP inilah, dan di mana mereka harus melantik seorang guru untuk mendapatkan pas perjalanan daripada PPD daerah dan balai polis yang berdekatan, agar lembaran kerja dapat dihantar ke sekolah SK Lingkabau. Sekiranya lembaran-lembaran kerja itu sudah dihantar ke SK Lingkabau, kami pihak ibu bapak akan berusaha dan memberikan kerjasama sepenuhnya untuk mengagihkan lembaran kerja tersebut kepada para pelajar yang berada di kawasan yang tidak mendapat rangkaian lah.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mariam Jamila binti Muhammad Yazid. My metric number 1172139. Next, we move to how to overcome students' problems in dealing with online learning from Islamic perspective. Education institutions have responded by holding online classes to ensure continuous learning, while the Education Ministry has listed online learning platforms such as Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Kahoot, Quiz, as well as the list of learning resources provided by the Malaysia. The philosophy of education in Islamic is repeatedly emphasized in the Quran and have several hadiths saying by the companion that are related to education. Next. Next slide. Okay. So the solution is educational methods are adopted by the Prophet Muhammad. We realized that he followed numerous methods for education for his community. The Prophet was simple in teaching. He did not burden his companion with study, and he used to select suitable time for lesson. The Prophet obligated both the teachers and the learners to uphold the etiquette that makes scholarship achieve its aim. For example, sincerity, honesty, and so on. He used to combine the method of addressing and that of the question and the answer. Islam take care of the individual and seeks to build an individual akidah to strengthen the relationship between him and the Creator. The righteous and virtuous community will both explain in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verses 16, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yahdi bihillahu man ittaba'a ridwanuhu subulan salam wa yukhrijuhum minaz zulumati ila nur biiznihi wa yahdihim ila siratil mustaqim. The explanation from this surah: indeed, there has come to you from Allah a light and a plain book, this Quran, wherewith Allah guide all those who seek His God pleasure to way of peace, and He brings them out of darkness by His will unto a light and guide them to a straight way. Next. The solution is Islam has put a very precise relationship between the teacher and the learner. Students must be much disciplined and never ask questions without his or her teacher's permission. For example, the student should be patient and wait until his or her teacher allowed him or her to speak and ask questions. As mentioned in Surah Al-Kahfi, verses 65. Slide. Verses 65. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Fawajada abdan min ibadina atainahu rahmatan min indina wa alamnahu min laduna ilma. The explanation from this surah: if you would follow me, then do not question me about anything until I myself speak to you about it. Okay, besides, according to Al-Ghazali, mentioned some duties of the teachers in his book of Ihya Ulumuddin, which may be summarized as follow: compassion to learners and to treat them like his children, and do not seek material gains from the teaching. This process is some advice for the student, which is to be good manners as a student. Next. Next is Islamic principles, guidelines, policies, and infrastructure based on the Quran and Sunnah. So, as a learning educational system is using a lot of information and communication technologies. Prophet Muhammad is the role model for the world as a teacher and academic institution. By adopting pros guidelines and policies in academic organization, will produce skilled professionals having ethical and moral value, which will be useful for society. We will produce skilled Muslim professionals who will work in the practical life based on the teaching from the Quran and Sunnah, and can be more useful for Muslim Ummah. Next. So, education has always been a major agenda in children's development program. It can bring about social, emotional, and spiritual change toward better quality of life. According to Islamic perspective, the role of education in responding to social issues among students is highlighted. The concept of education in Islam, which is no doubt in education at every level. In Malaysia, should be revised and strengthened despite focusing on methods which are the good understanding on the concept of knowledge, and the teaching and the learning approach should be improvised. As a teacher and school authority, parents also play an important role in educating to their children. Thank you. That's all from me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My matric number is 1172118. My name is Nur Atika Beti Khairun. Previous presentations about early learning and the COVID-19, that was the meaning, and the implications on online learning, and then with a solution online learning, and then we go through to the conclusions. Okay, recently the whole world has new norms, which is head to improvements and movement and interactions is was limited. So to prevent to get in large together, so thus use the online learning. Online learning, there has advantage and benefits, and there are also disadvantage. And there are also among the challenges faced by learners, literatures and students in adapting to new norms. It is undeniable that education system in Malaysia has not achieved but must be pleasure or aware. So to what facing we have a problem, we have a way to solve it from the Surah Al-Baqarah, much so short one way from Surah Al-Baqarah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت وعليه وربنا لا تؤاخذنا نسينا أو أخطأنا. Means Allah does not give burden to persons except He willing with situable him. So when we had a testing for disease from the to us from Allah. So alongside with the cure for any ayah from hadith from Abu Hurairah, ma anzalallahu dan ila anzalahu syai'an shifa'an. Okay, next. Next is about Dr. Mohan's recommendation said, student and literature design experience interacting, communicating and watching videos in building reports teachers in effective PDP processes, which is pupil had changing when COVID-19 occurred. So when high level students in ICT is better. Thus, the applications of andragogy and pedagogy to students by WFH online is in line with the government hope to achieve the industrial revolution 4.0. So meaning IR 4.0. So her advice, which is from the national developments to national progresses, so which is mainly on use the online learning. So we have a facing with the face to face to the teacher with the online learning. So we have a manner and civilized with teacher also or lecturer also. So as said Imam Malik, which is said learn manner before any knowledge. So
elakkan 3C, amalkan 3W norma baharu di tempat kerja. Penularan wabak COVID-19 yang melanda negara kita dan seluruh dunia telah merubah kehidupan kita dari kebiasaan lama kepada norma baharu. Bagi mencegah dan mengawal penularan COVID-19 di tempat kerja, langkah-langkah bagi mengelakkan 3C dan mengamalkan 3W adalah penting untuk memutus rantaian COVID-19. Ingat, perjuangan melawan COVID-19 masih belum tamat. Elakkan 3C, iaitu crowded places, tempat sesak, seperti berada di ruang perhimpunan semasa roll call dan semasa makan di kantin. Confined spaces, tempat tertutup, seperti pantry, surau, ruang rehat, lift dan bilik persalinan. Tingkatkan aliran udara dengan membuka tingkap di tempat tertutup. Close conversation, bercakap jarak dekat, seperti semasa bermesyuarat, berurusan di kaunter dan semasa di ruang kerja. Sebarang mesyuarat yang melibatkan ramai pekerja harus dibuat dalam talian. Amalkan 3W, iaitu wash, cuci. Mengamalkan kebersihan diri dengan kerap cuci tangan dengan air dan sabun atau guna hand sanitizer. Sediakan hand sanitizer di pintu masuk dan lain-lain tempat strategik di tempat kerja. Wear, pakai. Individu yang bergejala pernafasan, batuk atau selsema dan pekerja yang selalu berurusan dengan orang ramai seperti di kaunter perkhidmatan hendaklah memakai penutup mulut dan hidung. Warn, beri amaran. Polisi tidak bersalaman. Kita boleh terus bertegur sapa dan memberi salam kepada rakan sekerja dengan meletakkan tangan kanan di dada kiri dan tunduk sedikit sebagai tanda hormat. Amalkan etika batuk dan bersin. Lakukan disinfeksi di tempat yang kerap disentuh dan digunakan. Lakukan pemeriksaan suhu badan dan gejala pernafasan di semua pintu masuk tempat kerja. Mereka yang demam atau bergejala tidak dibenarkan memasuki bangunan tempat kerja dan diarahkan mendapatkan rawatan dengan segera dan kekal berada di rumah sehingga sembuh. Bagi mengelakkan 3C dan mengamalkan 3W adalah menjadi tanggungjawab pihak pengurusan. Peka dengan maklumat dan polisi terkini yang dikeluarkan oleh kerajaan dan segera memaklumkan kepada pekerja. Sentiasa amalkan penjarakan sosial sekurang-kurangnya 1 meter dari pekerja lain dan mengamalkan tahap kebersihan yang tinggi. Melakukan saringan kesihatan dan tingkatkan tahap kebersihan pengendali makanan. Pekerja dinasihatkan supaya tidak berkongsi makanan dan peralatan makanan. Menjadualkan giliran bekerja supaya bilangan minimum sahaja yang hadir manakala pekerja lain boleh bekerja dari rumah. Menilai risiko perjalanan pekerja yang berurusan di luar pejabat dan elakkan perjalanan yang tidak perlu. Membantu pekerja yang mengalami panik atau resah akibat COVID-19 untuk mendapatkan perkhidmatan sokongan psikososial.